Hi, so this new video is not going to be about any particular gameplay builds or any kind of strategies, tips, tricks, any things of that nature. Um, Instead, I want to talk about something of a review of sorts. I have 593 hours played in the game. I've completed all the achievements. I have 3 characters in full red gear, and for newcomers, you would consider that like in-game gear. The rest of my characters are only really missing just one piece, respectively, and I've participated in every beta, as well as I've done a couple of these YouTube videos and even made a little simple guide when the game first came out. So now you're probably wondering why I'm about to say what I'm going to say. It's not positive. It's probably a little bit more negative than positive. I still like the game. Again, with almost 600 hours played, I thoroughly enjoyed my time, but there's something very, very wrong with the state of the game right now. I think that's what somebody, if you're going to review a product, that's what you should do. You should spend a lot of time in the game. So that way you can give people an educated opinion, or at least a view that coincides with somebody who has some experience with the product or service that they're looking at. So anyway, here it is. The game has seen an endless seed of just completely lackluster and almost incompetent patches that just continue to break the game, that result in things becoming unplayable for some, less fun for others than previous builds. What a lot of people would view as balance, other people view it as a nerf. Instead of listening to the community as a whole, the developers kind of seem to spend their time fanning the flames of the elite. There's a few who I don't want to mention because I highly respect them, but there are some highly skilled players that are definitely, absolutely outside of the core base, an average player of the game. And they tend to listen to those people exclusively for balance changes. And while you would think, well, yeah, of course, that's a great source. That's who you would listen to, somebody who's very skilled at the game. But it doesn't seem to come in the way of catering to problems so much as it caters to that particular person's play style. It's very awkward. Imagine, if you would, being on a little league football team as a kid and being forced to play with NFL players in all your games. It doesn't feel quite right. I'm not complaining about it, as you might think that the game was like too hard for me. On the contrary, I enjoy the difficulty. I don't have a problem with it. The reason why I'm complaining about it is because the game's too difficult for the majority that own it. It's destroying a huge pool of available players and new people. I love a challenge. I particularly love playing with equally skilled players, and I like playing with people who don't have any skill. I like to engage and help other people get into it as well. So when you're playing this game, you either have a group of solid people that are completely aware of all of the nuances, the broken things of the game, or you're surrounded by people who are newbies that just know little or nothing. There's not really much of a balance to be had there when you have this team-oriented experience. There are people who are literally struggling match after match and day after day, week after week, trying to figure out what they're doing wrong. And then these people are genuinely trying to be a better player, so they can be on the same page as the rest of these guys. The problem here is that the game punishes you for things that are outside of your control. Some of it can be adapted to, sure, but it's not all common knowledge. There's a number of issues, like the ghost damage, where enemies can hit you from tens of yards away, and you're just scratching your head thinking, what did I do wrong? Everything's running great. My frames are, working as well as I, think they should. You can do all that due diligence, and it just won't matter. And unless you do some digging, you'll discover that there's a lot of issues unless you're the host. The reality things is that most of the exceptional players, they run around the map with their guard up all the time on default because they anticipate stuff like that. This has nothing to do really with getting good, and more of everything to do with the lack of intuitive and functioning game design. Nobody's going to tell you oh, that's broke, do this instead, but instead they berate you for not being aware of it. It's as if it's your fault. They're fully aware that the game has weird stuff going on, and they adapt to it accordingly. A skilled player would do something like that, but it's just poor game design when things like this occur, because not everyone can be expected to play outside of those unintentional consequences and these game-breaking mechanics. I think I'm a skilled player. I can adapt to these things, but I don't expect the same from everyone else. And I'm not going to shun my fellow gamer because of their lack of awareness of these issues. Now, I'm not going to forget to mention that the community really feels like it's falling apart because of a lack of moderation and communication. There's no widely known content discussion that's made readily available and shared. It's almost as if everything's translated through the grapevine. The forums and lobbies are teeming with angry players that attribute their poor attitudes as being nothing but frustration from playing a difficult game. And I've read dozens of posts where they make every attempt to belittle others. In a circle jerk, they kind of circle jerk each other into a frenzy of get goods and yeah, everyone else sucks. And sure, these people have a right to say whatever they want, but actions have repercussions. But not here, though. The toxic behavior is just it abounds. It keeps people out, and I've seen both sides of the argument. There are people who say, well, if you're not good and you can't get good, and you can't, if you can't stand, me dropping in bombs and stuff like that, then you shouldn't be here. I'm sorry, I can't be on the same page as that. There's no reason that anyone needs to be an asshole because they're having a bad time, and I can't see how that's going to attract other people. And sure, it might attract other assholes, but that's not the kind of game I want to spend my money on. The game's reached a plateau for a lot of players where there's not really much of a carrot on a stick to chase anymore. It's no longer rewarding, and this is pretty normal in most MMOs. But here, it's safe to be under the assumption that we should have seen some content updates by now. They've had it posted on their website and in their blogs and stuff, and we've witnessed a cycle of patches that break something, fix something, break, fix, break, fix. Every other intended fix gets broken, it seems like, with every patch. The further this continues, the longer it's going to take to see any future content updates. But the core base, the dedicated players, they're okay with that. And for the most part, I am too. I want a functioning game. But that hasn't been the case. So far, the patience is wearing incredibly thin with a lot of players. And it's kind of striking to say this, but it's almost as if the developer has a team member somewhere on the inside who's just intentionally sabotaging the development process and support of the game post-release. Now, did I get my money's worth out of the game? Hell yeah, I did. Would you? I don't know. But only because the game feels worse off now than it did at launch. Or, just as bad maybe in some areas. Maybe better in others. But, there's some saltiness to be had when they can't follow through release schedules. There's a very poor management going on, leaving things out, and I would avoid this game for now. Come back and consider it in about 6 months. Give people something to talk about. Maybe motivate Fat Shark to be more engaged and to listen to the community. We've had issues with green dust for so long, and sure, it's been acknowledged, but where? Where has it been acknowledged that I don't have to dig through a couple dozen forum pages to find that they said something about this in a Twitch video. It's a little ridiculous. They need to have somebody at the forefront for a game that's as big as it is, for a game that received such well-regarded, esteem. There's so much positivity around this game at launch, and so many people were so ready to get into it, and now it's not like that anymore. And it's sad because at the end of the day, this is a great game. This is the kind of game that I want to spend a great deal more time, and I want to spend another 600 hours in it, and maybe another 600 after that. I want to see it continue to grow, but it feels like it just keeps getting stymied more and more. And there is definitely an incubation time. There's a time when this stuff needs to occur before something's just dead in the water. Anyway, I've said my piece, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Thanks for watching, and I hope in the future I'll have some more positive videos for you.